Are you looking to keep up with key trends in the marketplace? Are you striving to maintain your competitive edge at work? Looking for a career change but unsure about your next move? The Skillsharp podcast is here to help you. Join industry insiders Brian, Todd, and Mike, who will guide you through strategies for career success.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Skillsharp the Podcast.
At Podcast Skill to always stay sharp.
Hello and welcome to Skillsharp the Podcast. We're your industry insiders, Todd Nakasone, Brian Wright, and myself, Mike Daniels, discuss topics that can keep your skills sharp and keep you moving forward in your career. Today's special guest is Marsha Haygood. Brian?
Marsha is a longtime colleague of all of ours from our time at Time Warner, and she is the founder and president of Stepwise Associates, LLC, where she provides sage and keen wisdom and insights to businesses, to executives, to really all levels of professionals, equipping them to be empowered and to take those next steps in their careers and actually also in their personal life. So we are akin to your mission, Marsha, and we welcome you. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited to be talking to you, excited to be on this podcast, and anytime that we can help to sharpen others' skills, I'm excited.
I think I'm going to jump to the end, and then we can come back to the beginning. Mm-hmm. So you're a seasoned podcaster, and I heard that you took, I think, 2 weeks to market an event that you were going to hold that was called Ask Marsha.
Ask Marsha H.
Ask Marsha H.
Yes.
How many people did you get to attend that event?
Well, it's so interesting. People ask me questions all the time. They call up and say, can I pick your brain? Or, let me just ask you one thing. And I was getting the same type of questions over and over. And I just said, you know what? I should just put it online and just tell people to sign up and sign in. And I did that, and it was less than 2 weeks. I just put it online, and to my surprise, well over 100 people registered for the session. And I just said to them, you know what? I don't want it to be one where we can see each other. So it's not Zoom, because I want you to be able to ask questions without letting people know who you are if you want to remain anonymous. So we did it with a free conference call on a Saturday morning. I said, stay in your pajamas, don't put on makeup, just let's come on and let's answer some questions that you may have. They could either email me the questions beforehand, or they could come on and remain anonymous and just ask a question. And like I said, I think there were like 105 people registered for the session. And I said, it'll be an hour session. I'll answer as many questions. And if people want to stay on a little longer, I can do another 15 or 20 minutes. And 105 people stayed on for an hour and 15 minutes. We just spoke. It was a Saturday morning, get to know one another and answer your questions. Fun.
So, your background in HR is expansive, and you've dealt with a lot of different businesses, also in different stages of our, economic condition. When did you know going into HR that you could have this greater impact on people?
Well, I always kind of thought I was smart. Should I start there? No, let me be real. I didn't know I was going to go into HR. That's not what I said. Oh, you know what? When I grow up, I'm going to be in HR. But my mom taught me early on that I could do anything I wanted to do. So the things I enjoy, I just keep doing. And one of the things that I enjoy doing, in case you didn't notice, is talk. So I just spoke. And as I spoke to people, one thing led to another. So I took a temporary job in an HR department after college, while I was a temporary part-time job while I was looking for a real job. And because I talked to applicants that came in to the HR department, they evidently would mention me when they go in to talk to the recruiter. Oh, that lady who was sitting outside, she really, she made me calm, or she, said something to me that I liked. And so the head of the HR department asked me if I wanted a job in HR. They didn't have one, but they were going to make one up, and hired me as an HR person. And that's how I started in HR. And 25 plus years later, I went from receptionist in the HR department to executive vice president of HR at New Line Cinema. I just think
Incredible.
You can do anything you want to do. My goal is to be to other people like my mom was to me. You can do anything you set your mind to, but you have to do something. You can't just hope for it. Hope is not a strategy. You have to actually do some work for it. But if you choose to be successful in an area and put all your effort to that, my thought is that you can accomplish that goal.
But it's interesting the way you describe it, because I know that there's obviously you start with being smart, but then there's also like a technical, or like how you go about your work. As everyone knows, there's a relationship aspect of your work.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also that skill set of just being variable and taking on whatever. So early on, what were some of the things that you did strategically where you started to build best practices and behaviors that put you in position for that meteoric rise?
I think probably the thing that has helped me the most, and I understand that it can be both a strength and a weakness, by the way, is curiosity. You need to be curious about things and not think you know everything. Even when you're real smart on a subject, there's always something that you can learn. So asking questions and really listening to learn rather than listening to talk will set part of the agenda. And then you have to give it time. You have to give yourself time to think. You have to give yourself time to practice. And even when you get knocked down, you have to get back up and try it again.
Now, Marsha, did you have a set of mentors, or what we call it, board of directors?
Mm-hmm.
The personal board of directors who can kind of tell you about your blind spots and, what it would be like to pursue that type of career. Did you have any of that in the beginning, or you just sought out yourself?
You know what? I always had people. I ask for feedback. So when you ask for feedback and you don't argue about the feedback that you get, people are more apt to give you real criticism or real constructive things that you can move forward. So I've had people who have always given me some advice. I didn't like it all, but I heard it. I couldn't say I didn't hear it. And I'll share with you that I do what I call a self-audit every year, where I send out questions to people.
It's like your personal annual review.
And I just pick people in my circle.
Now, did that come from your training in human resources, or did you, have a mentor that kind of helped you with that process?
What are you thinking? Tell me what you think.
Yeah, that shows high emotional IQ or emotional intelligence.
And their integrity as well.
And integrity. And do you want somebody like that on your team? But that's a good point. You proactively sought out that feedback.
And also I see, and I'm not alone in doing this, that a lot of people, before they hire, especially a senior member of their team or salesperson of their team, they take them out to eat. That's not because they think they're hungry. That's because they want to know if they have table manners and how they treat the wait staff.
Yes. Absolutely. Especially, you want to figure out what the fit is. You don't want to hire a bad apple that's going to spoil the rest of the apple cart. Absolutely not.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you want to see how people are when they're not on, when they're not in your office. So it might mean calling people at home and seeing how they answer their phone. Now we're checking, their social media site to see what they write on Facebook. But you need to do that. So I tell my clients, be authentic. How you say you want to be seen, you don't just say it. You actually have to live it. And if you don't live it, then guess what? That's not your brand.
Yeah, it's always good to be true to yourself and taking that feedback. But I kind of want to circle that back with, the various promotions that you've had along your career. I mean, it's very rare you go from receptionist all the way up to, your executive level. How did you kind of tie in the feedback and your 360, what do you call it? Your 360 performance evaluation, if you want to call it that, to your bosses, and knowing that you were ready for that next promotion? How did you kind of circle that all or tie that all in together?
You know what? You need to track your own accomplishments and be able to share that feedback with your boss and with the people around you. And understand that, a lot of people go into these performance evaluations hoping that their bosses or the people around them remember all the things they've done. They don't.
They don't.
You need to remember. You can't even remember all the things you've done when you first go in. So you need to be keeping track of those things and have a real authentic conversation. I've done this, and this. My team has done this. I'd love to get involved in this. I can demonstrate that I can do this well because I've done it. And here's the catcher. I've done it not only here, or I may not have done it here, but I do it in my community. I do it at my church. I do it with wherever you do it. And guess what? If you can't say you do it, then chances are you really haven't done it. You're not living it. So
absolutely,
you should be able to do those things and share them in a way that the person hears it. Like an example is that at one point in my career, I reported to the CFO. The CFO pays attention to numbers. So when I was working when I'm explaining to him, I had to have figures, stats in my discussion, versus when I'm talking to a CEO that likes something else, I may be talking about the same thing, but in a very different way. You should know the people who you want to impress. And at this stage, in these days and times, you can Google anybody and find out something about them. And if you're not doing all of those things, then you're not as serious as you may think you are. I think that I talk about choices all the time. I think we have a choice. And I've said to Brian, and he laughed at me when I said this. I said, when you want to be successful, there's a skill and then there's will. And if you don't have both of them, it's skill plus will get you almost anywhere you want to be.
Skill plus will. There you go.
Squill. We just coined a new phrase.
Squill. We'll call it squill.
Squill sharp.
Okay.
So I was doing some reading on personal branding, Marsha, and part of one of the concepts I read is when you're developing that personal brand, you should actually take the time to develop a target market. You should be thinking of target customers. And in your point, you mentioned that one of your target customers was your CFO. Certainly, when your target customer should be the person you report to. You also mentioned being able to document and to express the things that you've done, marketing yourself, selling yourself, adding the value of some of the things that you've done. With memories being so short, our own personal memories and those that in our target markets memories, I would like for you to talk to us a little bit about, how you were able to encapsulate your message. And then did you have a particular strategy with respect to, how frequently you would speak with individuals in order to sell yourself to them?
In terms of how often, a lot of times it was just opportunity. We have opportunities that, we've all heard of that elevator pitch, right? So there's going to be a time when you're going to be in a situation with your CEO and he or she is going to say, "How you doing?" And most of people answer, "Oh, just fine." It's like, not good enough. "Oh, we're wonderful. We just finished working on this project that we developed and it is going out to market next week." You need to be able to say something, that's good. And then they're going to say, "Oh, really? What project is that?" "Well, I'd love to be able to tell you about it. If you don't mind, I'll send a copy of some notes about it to your assistant for your review." Do you think they remember me or the person that said, "Oh, fine"?
That's excellent. And oftentimes when we're in work environments, we will take the time to be collegial with our colleagues. Forgive the redundancy, but
Mm-hmm.
we don't always take the time to pop in our boss's office, our manager's office, and ask them for lunch.
Right.
Many times we forget about that, and it doesn't have to be all the time. It could be once a quarter, it could be once a month, but being able to carve that time out will give you that face time you need to express what you've been doing and what value you've been adding to the organization, so that when that review time comes around, you're going to get the review that you certainly deserve, and B, you now create a relationship with that person, so that when it's time for you to move up within an organization, you can simply ask. So I wanted to find out from you, in your as Brian terms it, your meteoric rise. You know, Talk to us about some of those key milestones. Did people actually tap you on the shoulder and say it's time for you to move up? Marsha, did you grab the bull by the horns and say, you know what, I want this and I want it by X date? Talk to us a little bit about, how you were able to move up within your organization, within your career.
Well, I'd first go back, Mike, and say one thing. I didn't ask people for lunch. Lunch is too long. I don't know if I like them, and I don't know if they like me, and I want them not to be watching their watch while they're sitting with me, because then they're not really listening. They're just trying to go through the motions. So I usually ask for 10, no more than 15 minutes. And my co-author has a joke. She says she usually would take food. So she would say, you know what kind of coffee do you like? Or do you or take a bagel or something and say, you know what, I'd love to get 10 minutes of your time. So you'll learn the person, something about the person, so that when you're taking up time with them, it's not a lot of time, and they'll devote that time to you, whether it be because they feel guilty because you just brought them a bagel, or because they really are interested in what you have to say. And I tend to like to go to where people live, and I have lived in quotes. I like to go to people's office because I want to know if they have a picture of their dog, their cat, or their children on their desk. I want to know if they like artwork. I want to know something about them. At this day and age, I'm also going to Google them. I want to know where they went to school. I want to put them on my Google alert, so that if something is happening with them, I'll be able to mention that. If they're getting ready to speak somewhere, I want to know about that ahead of time, because people like to talk about themselves. So sometimes those 10 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes, has nothing at all to do with me. It really is asking the right question to let them talk about themselves, because then they want to do it again. And 10 minutes turns into a half an hour, you know. But I'm not asking for the half an hour. Half an hour is too long. An hour is definitely too long. So if I say, I'd love to get 10 minutes of your time, they say, oh, join me for lunch. That's one thing. But I'm never going to ask them to go to lunch with me.
There's a thin line between self promotion and I call it personal PR. That brand is so important nowadays. But funny enough, with the way you all were describing it, these are oftentimes people that even if it's just in passing, them, or they're on the same lot as you, or they're in the same building. Most people, networking wise, don't know people that they're connecting with, end up expecting these people after a chance meeting and do work for you. Like hey, you're going to introduce me to this person, you're going to do this. So, I mean, what would you say to people in terms of the quote unquote word networking and how they could be better at that?
It means connecting, and it means not asking for something initially. Sometimes it's offering something. And oftentimes you can network with people and give them something. You will get it back in return. My mother used to say, throw something out the window, it comes back through the door. So what I'd say to that is, if I find that someone is I read that someone loves to travel. In conversation, I might say, where's the last place you've been, or where are you going next, or what's on your bucket list, or something that simple. But I'd love for them to tell me. So if they say, oh, I'm going to Italy, my next trip, I'm dying to go to Italy. Okay. I'm coming home and I'm doing some research on something in Italy. You can guarantee, because my next conversation is going to be, you mentioned that you might be going to Italy soon. I thought you'd love this conversation, or I wanted to share this article with you. Well, I've researched the article, but it's taken me 10 minutes to research the article. I just got brownie points because I was listening. I wasn't talking. And all I have to say is, for your information, thought of you when I read this article. I'm done. They're going to say, wow, she heard what I had to say. Wow, chances are they're going to send something back, even if it's, thanks for this article. It's great. The next time I talk to them, it might be, did you go to Italy yet? What is someplace I just have to see? I'm starting a connection. That's the connection. The connection is not, I'm looking for a job and can you help me get promoted? They don't know me. Oftentimes they're researching me the same way I'm researching them. So you have to put something out there about yourself that will allow people to network with you. So what is it about you that's of interest? That's your PR, that's your brand, that allows people to contact you and say something. What do you share? So I might share that, I said it today. I said, I've been married more than half my life. People might say, I read this article about people who have been married for a really long time, and I thought of what you said. There's a connection. You said, you've been doing podcasts for a lot of time. Wow, Marsha, heard you've been doing podcasts for a long time. What are some of the podcasts and how did you get on? Anything to connect. I haven't asked for anything. They haven't asked for anything. It starts a conversation. So I think that the branding and Mike, you asked, how did I move from one step to another? Sometimes it's sharing what I want to do. And it's not saying you have to give it to me by this period of time. It's never that. But it even though I might be thinking that, by the way, but it's usually, you know what, I'd love to get involved in this area. Or, you may not know that I have a liking for, a degree in, some experience in this. And I'd love to be able to be part of that team or help that team out. And a lot of times that's volunteer initially, especially if it's in the same organization. I want to move from human resources to engineering. People wouldn't know I had an engineering background unless I told them something. So I need to be able to tell them something about me that shows my interest and that I'm looking at it, or I'm getting a certificate in it, or I've been experimenting with it. Tell them something that will help them help you.
Skillsharp is brought to you by Max Edwards Company. Max Edwards is a business consulting and professional development firm that provides holistic strategies for short and long-term workforce solutions. Our team of consultants has over 60 years of experience in the media and entertainment industry. We will work closely with your business to understand what high performance and success looks like. We then build talent attraction strategies that meet your business objectives. If you're a business trying to fill a critical position, a new startup building a team, or a company interested in developing and retaining your top performers, Max Edwards Company is your competitive advantage. Visit us at maxedwardscompany.com. That's www.maxedwardscompany.com.
Well, Marsha, I was going to ask if any of the folks that you hired in your department, did they use that technique on yourself? And did you recognize that pattern?
Yeah, I do, because I teach people that pattern. So if they, you know what, you actually get brownie points for using that, because that means you were listening. I'm okay with that. That's what I do. I want people to, my mission now, and it's my purpose and my passion and my mission in life now is to leave a legacy. And that legacy is to help people be as happy and as successful as I have been. Because it wasn't by chance. It was by doing some things that people may not always think of. And they weren't big things. They weren't big. They're small, manageable steps, but they're consistent. So yeah, use them all.
Absolutely. I'm writing as we're listening to the conversation.
Hey, I have a question. In terms of the entrepreneurial step that you took, were you already operating as an entrepreneur internally first and it made it an easy transition, or were there also things that you needed as an entrepreneur once you were out on your own?
The answer is both. Yes to both. I decided that I ultimately wanted to have my own company, and I wanted to do just what I'm doing now. That was a 10-year process, by the way. I probably said that 10 years while I was in my job, and it was 10 years before. And I had said, you know what? I need to be able to make enough money so that I'm not worried about money. I need to do some things. I enjoyed working at New Line. You know, I got to go to the Oscars. I got to fly first class. I came back and forth to New York and LA. All the things I enjoyed doing, but my ultimate goal was to help other people do what I was doing. And in order to do that, you need to be able to sit in a room with people who know how to do it already. So the fact of the matter is, I was learning while I was working. So I did that. And then when I started my own company, it was because I had researched, you know, how to do finances and how to do a business plan and how to do those things. But some things I'm still learning. I will tell you in a heartbeat that as hard as I try, I am lost with technology every single time I try to do something new. I'm like, I don't know. Like I said to you, I don't know if that headset's going to work. I have no clue, but I'll try it. It's just the way it is. Know what you can do. And you know, here I go with another one of these quotes. Do it, delegate it, or dump it. So I'll try doing it. It doesn't work. I'm delegating it to somebody else. It doesn't work. I say, hell, never mind. Dump it. I can't do it. And nobody else is doing it well either. So I'll just dump it. So you make some decisions for yourself, but they need to be real decisions that you can live with. It's a requirement.
You're listening to Skill Sharp, the podcast. Today's special guest is motivational speaker, empowerment coach, and leadership consultant, Marsha Haygood. Marsha, we're living in times where things are, of course, constantly changing. And, you know, Brian and I were having a conversation earlier. It feels like time is just moving faster than it ever has before. But time is one of those things that is critical, and many people think about it. It's in their forefront when they're thinking about their career. You know, somebody may want to be in that management or director seat within 3 or 4 years, and they may be in a company where that isn't necessarily the timeline. What can you say to individuals, Marsha, to keep them motivated, to keep their eyes on the prize, even though it seems like the timing is not moving as quickly as they'd like it to?
Well, chances are timing is not going to move as quickly as you'd like it to. You always have a faster timeline than most people do. But I think you have to know what your skills are. You have to know, and you should know people outside of your company, and you should be inspired by others. So oftentimes when people tell me they want to do something that's different than what they're doing now, whether it be a higher level or a different industry altogether, I say, who do you know that's doing what you want to do? Who are you inspired by? Are you following them? And in social media, you can follow anybody. So are you following them? Do you know what they're doing? Have you tried to reach them? You know, it doesn't make a difference. Well, you would love for them to reach back out to you, but if they don't, why not? What can you change? I really think that this year has been, as much as it's been a crazy year, it's also been an opportunity because more people are home, more people are paying attention. There's more free stuff online than I have ever seen before. Maybe I'm just noticing it, but there's a lot of free stuff out there. Are you getting on? Are you saying, oh no, this is an opportunity for me to sleep late? Well, guess what? The program came on at 7:30 in the morning. You slept late. You chose not to do that. But you should ask other people. Who else is doing what you like to do? Call them up. Say, you know what? I'm really trying to get in this. Do you know, not can you help me necessarily, because everybody's busy, but do you know of any, if you learn of any podcasts that teach me about skills, I want to know about it. Somebody else is going to tell you about Skill Smart podcast. Somebody's going to tell you about it. Google it. I call the Google. I say, the Google is your friend. Google it. Do something. Because I'm telling you, before I take on clients as a coach and they tell me what their problem is, I ask them, well, what have you tried to do about it already? And if they say, well, I really haven't done anything, I don't know what to do. It's like, do you have a computer? Do you know how to talk to people? Who's your friends? Have you asked them? What can you do? But they're asking the wrong questions. So I think you start off small. You don't have to start off major. You start off with small baby steps. And what I also say is you develop success habits. Develop a success routine. When something is working, duplicate it. When something's not working, you can try it again, but if it continues not to work, do something different. And everybody is around. Everybody can help you. I don't care what they look like. I don't care what level they are. Everyone can help you in some way.
Marsha, could you tell us more and share about your company, Stepwise, and what you do?
Yeah, Stepwise Associates. My company is going into its 15th year. When I left New Line, I left in 06, the beginning of 06. And by the time I left, because I gave notice, 6 months notice, as a matter of fact, that I was not signing another contract and I was leaving, and I would help hire the next person and train them, I actually was doing coaching on the side. And when I left New Line, I had a waiting list. So my company started off in full swing. And it was, I've grown since then. I do a lot of things differently, but I at least tried things. And I wanted to meet coaches. I mean, I had a coach when I started coaching, because there's always someone who knows more than you. So you ask questions. I call up now and ask a question. I tried this, it didn't really work. You have any ideas? I'm thinking about doing this course. What should pricing look like? It could be anything, but just ask people. Once they know that you're willing to try stuff and you're not going to take up a lot of their time, because time is money, they'll help you. So I think that's what you do. I realize that I'm an optimist. I always see the glass half full, always see the glass half full. But, I'm also around people that see the glass half full. People who see the glass always empty drain my energy. So I try not to be around them. Quite frankly, I just try not to.
As an optimist, what is your outlook for 2021? What is your prediction?
I think it will be okay if people take some time to think about what they learned in 2020. And those people who only have seen the negative of 2020 will have a tougher time in 2021. People who've been practicing some things that they never had time to do will see it as okay, we'll come out of this. And I want to be real specific about this one, because this is so vitally important. People who say they had no money, it's because they saved no money. It's because they saved no money, because they always thought it was going to keep happening. So what have they saved in 2020 so that if this happens again, they're in a better situation? So I say, you know what? I just said this to a client the other day. Sell those red bottom shoes, because they didn't serve you well in 2020. Sell some of those St. John suits, because guess what? You didn't wear them in 2020. Keep 2 or 3, sell the rest. Put them in the consignment shop. That's learning something. I tell, what have you learned? I practice taking Spanish lessons every year, always. Can't speak any more Spanish now than I could speak last year, but I try. So what new apps have you learned to do something that you want to do? You always want to write a book? That means spend 15 minutes every morning writing something. Now you got at least a couple of chapters. What have you learned? So those people, I think, will move forward. It'll be a little harder than it has been, maybe, but it will also bring you further ahead. I said we have to take time to think about what we want. You know, and I can tell you that there are a lot of people that I say, so what does success look like to you? And they don't have a clue. They don't have a clue. So I say, just, you know what? Let's stop the conversation and give yourself some time to think. Don't watch some TV program tonight. Don't go on to happy hour as soon as you get off the phone with me. Instead, give yourself some time to think. Develop a personal leadership notebook, which I talk about in the Little Black Book of Success. Develop a leadership notebook. My leadership notebook, which is so vitally important to me, I have a section that just says ideas. That's all it says. It's the biggest part of my book. And it's because if I think of something, I want to write it down, because next week I'll just be saying, I had a great idea last week. I wonder what it was if I didn't write it down. So I want to write it down, but I can't stop and spend all my time on it right now. So I'm just writing it down so I could get back to it. Focus on something. Pick one thing that you said you wanted to do, and then put all your effort to it. I guarantee you'll be further ahead next year than you were this year. What's one thing that you said you wanted to do? If you said you wanted to do 5 things, 10 things, chances are none of them got done fully. You say one thing, the other 4 things are on the side. And you know where I learned that from? Warren Buffett. I don't know the man, but I read. And somebody asked him, why is he so successful? How did he be so successful? And he said, because he writes down 25 things that he wants to accomplish. And then he prioritizes the first 5, whatever they are. He just picks them out of those 25 things. And he only focuses on the 5. He said the other 20 are distractions. I have to do them later. So you can learn from anybody. You know, follow people, hear what they have to say, learn from the people who've been successful. They've already done it. I want to learn from them.
And he's still doing it.
And he's still doing it. That's exactly right.
That's excellent. One of the main reason that Skill Sharp, the podcast, was created was exactly what you just said, Marsha. Todd, Brian, and I, for years, have been talking and doing things, but it never happened. So we took the time that we had during the quote unquote pandemic and said, let's just get it done. And here we are talking to Marsha Haygood. Now, Marsha, you mentioned the Little Black Book of Success. This is a book that you've co-authored. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit more about this as we read it, and when we purchase it and decide to read it, what do we have to look forward to?
You have 40 laws of leadership to look forward to. Let me tell you this. One of the authors actually went to, and she worked at HBO. Remember, my co-authors all were Time Warner employees. One was at HBO in the creative area, and she was offered the opportunity to go to a leadership class. At that leadership class, they told her that she should, or told the group, that they should go out and network, quote unquote, with someone who was at a higher level than them that they wanted to learn from. And she called me up and asked me would I go to dinner with her. And she called a couple of other high-level women in the Time Warner arena. I said, can I bring someone with me? And I took one of the other co-authors with me. We had such a great time. It was all about eating and drinking and just laughing. And at the end of every time, we started meeting once a quarter. And at the end of every meal, we would end up saying, you know what, we could write a book about that. And one of the times we said, why don't we? And there were, I think, 6 or 7 of us there. Some of them said, not interested. The 3 of us said, that sounds like a good idea. And lo and behold, we wrote the Little Black Book of Success, Laws of Leadership for Black Women. And we just started picking chapters out. Picking topics out. And then we just write about it and share it with one another and tweak it amongst ourselves. So our first chapter is always consider yourself a VIP. And each chapter is less than 10 pages, 5 to 10 pages. And at the end of them, we have 4 or 5 bullet points that we call mama-isms. And these are things our mothers have been saying to us for years that we thought it was just what our mother said or just what our grandmother said. Don't you come out of that room until you fix your face really means watch your body language. It's just little things that they would say to us. So we ended every chapter with 4 or 5 bullet points. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten. How many times have we heard this stuff? We just took it for granted. So we've just put it in the book. It became a #1 bestseller. It was nominated for the NAACP Book Award, Literary Award, and it is now 10 years old. And I can tell you that we have just gotten a call. It was published by Random House, Penguin Random House, and we just gotten a call saying, "You want to do something else with that book? Maybe we could do something else." And we still collecting royalties. We didn't even know what royalties were when we started writing that book. So you just don't know. You just got to leave yourself open to things. And if nothing else, this year has told us that we know how to pivot. Just do we want to develop that? That should be a skill. And quite frankly, we have that skill. We just haven't used it in a while. Now we've had to pivot. I've even had to cook, and that is truly a pivot.
Okay, that's another mama. So, Marsha, how do we get our hands on your book?
The book is on Amazon. What I am doing now for the next few weeks, actually for Christmas, people who are interested in the book can contact if they want an autographed copy of the book. A lot of people are giving it as gifts. If they want that, they just contact me and pay me by Cash App or Zelle, and I will autograph the book and send it out to them so that they have it as a gift to give. Or a lot of people are just saying, autograph it to this person, and this is their address. And I wrap it up all pretty and send it to them once I get payment for it, and and do it that way. So I've been sending this book out. I was at the post office today with packages of books, sending gifts. So you could do that if you just want the book or the workbook. It's a companion workbook that goes along with it. You can do that either through me or on Amazon. The Little Black Book of Success, Laws of Leadership for Black Women. And it's the workbook is the same name and follows the same guidelines. It starts off with the same chapters. The book was dubbed A Mentor in Your Pocket, and the workbook is dubbed A Call to Action. So you actually get to write about your experiences in each of those areas.
Marsha, how do we get in touch with you, Marsha?
Okay, they can do it a number of ways. My email address is mhaygood@stepwiseassociates.com. So they can always email me. You can link in with me. I ask that you tell me why we're linking in, how you know about me. I'd like to get that information. So don't send a lazy LinkedIn message. Tell me something. But you can always link in with me. My Facebook is under my name as well. Instagram is my name as well. I don't tweet that often, though I'm told that's going to be on my list for next year to do better. Is Stepwise Assoc, because Associates is too long. So it's Stepwise Assoc, but you can always find me. And then guess what? Google is your friend. The Google is your friend. You can always Google me and find out how to reach me in any of those ways.
Thank you for listening to Skill Sharp, the podcast. Send your questions and comments to podcast at skill-sharp.com. You can follow us on Twitter at skillsharp1 or visit us online at www.skill-sharp.com. This is Mike Daniels signing off for Todd Nakasone, Brian Wright, Alyssa Pruitt, Will Kelso, and the rest of the team at Skill Sharp Studios. Until next time, stay sharp.